Hi everybody, I'm Coulbrooke. I'm your Poet Laureate of Logan City. And I'm here with my poetry group, which is named Poetry Act 3. And we're going to do some quick draw poetry for you with the dueling poets. We've got Brock de Chair. We've got Susan Peshti-Strobel. They're going to duel. We've got Shannon Ballum and Ben Gunsberg. They're going to duel. And we've got Carrie Cannon-Scheidel and Phil Parisi, and they're going to finish off the dueling poets. Our theme is on family, memory, elegy, rhapsody, and other stuff. And I've got some scripts, so you can read all of the poems. There are the scripts here, and there are the scripts there, so you can follow along with the duel. Would you please, somebody pass those out, and otherwise just grab some as we go, okay? Now, as some of you know, I'm an advocate of the Bear River, born and raised in Riverdale, Idaho. So I'm going to read a couple of poems, and the first one is On the River. It's in two parts. That bridge, the one I walked to daily in summer, those girders riveted, steel. Fish, those herring, trout, carp, occasional bluegill. This dry grass burnt thirst when I remember that childhood, rural, rotary phone number still tripping off my tongue. 0393 R3, and that boy, 5th grader I loved aloud on the party line 3 hours at a time, cousin Bonnie picking up, listening in, waiting for her daily mother-daughter conversation. That line strung along the gravel road that ran beside the river all the way to town. 2. That river, the one I grew up drowning in. That river I went down to like religion, the one I come back to gasping for all it cannot hold. Those long gone years of summer, leather-skinned, barefooted, tattered like the striped shirt my sister wore, handed down 3 times from older brothers. Traded in fall for dresses, a string of schoolyard friends, ripples. That boy who hung up the phone, those parents who died and never stopped calling, that lingering hint of family, that long line of us, the splintering off like planks from a raft. That one was published in Sugar House Review, and it's also in Walking the Bear, published by Outlaw Artist Press. And my next poem, my last one for now, is Disconnected Cell Phone Blues. This one is for my Mitch. He's my Logan poet muse. He causes a lot of poetry to happen around Logan, so he should be the Associate Poet Laureate, I think. This is for Mitch and Dylan, and for the blues, and for poetry. It feels like the last thread broken, he says, between me and my son. The canceled cell phone we paid for since he was 19, and now he's 29. We've decided to stop the family plan, ease our budget crisis. Besides, my stepson says the only calls he makes are to his wife when he'll be late, never calls his dad, who now feels bereft, as if his son hadn't left years ago. I've come in from my evening walk, first line of a poem on my mind, something I need to write down right now, but he's playing Kenny Wayne's Blue on Black, telling me his lifeline's broken, as if he can't pick up the phone and call his son's landline any time, as if paying for the cell phone is our only tie. Meanwhile, I've lost the muse, the line I had in my head, something about the moon, my words and the mood turned off with the stereo, though his tune still moves through my head along with his dejection, his closing the CD case, placing it on the shelf, and slowly shuffling through the kitchen to the shower to silently drown his sorrow in a stream of hot water. Next week, I'll be cooking for 6, playing dolls with his grandkids while he and his son talk business over a sink full of dishes. Oops, no, I gotta do one more line here. Playing dolls with his grandkids while he and his son talk business when his son's wife will mention moon cycles over a sink full of dishes, and I'll remember the lines I didn't write because he had the blues, the broken thread blues, as if his family ties would be severed with the phone we disconnected, as if wireless signals were as irretrievable as the line I lost tonight between here and the full, silent moon. Take it away, Brock and Susan.
Hi, I'm Brock. I'm going to read a few poems about my kids. And one of the things I love about writing poetry is that it allows you to figure out your life and remember things and try to make decisions and basically make sense of your chaotic existence. This one is about a debate that I think every parent goes through about whether you let your kid, your baby, cry itself to sleep. I'm assuming that's still a big debate in parental circles. It certainly was when I was a young parent. It's called To Hear Her. I stifle my own breathing, raise my head, neck rigid, screening out sounds of wife, clocks, fans, cats, knowing the books say, let them get used to an unresponsive world and cry themselves to sleep, feeling the seductive pull of soft, warm oblivion, needing to finish those interrupted dreams, but as I prepare to leap at her next cry, listening to my own heart.
My first poem is about something I noticed about my mother. That thing she did. Coming home from school on winter afternoons, I found my mother so often sitting by the window, her eyes fixed on a world not outside. Her fingers ill-idled by that something that stirred the folds of her apron, her elbows held up by the brown chair's curved arms, a tether from in-laws. She just sat there with shadows growing in her curls. Why sit in the dark? What needed to be seen?
This poem is called Dinner Scene, and it was published actually twice by Mothering Magazine. So I guess they thought it contains either some wisdom or a situation that would amuse people. Probably the latter. Dinner Scene. He's not bad, she contradicts her father-in-law, head of the table patriarch. He's rowdy, but a good boy. Tension hangs on his carving knife, but turkey is all he cuts. Around the table, inner children ask, where was my protection? While the not bad boy readies his spoon catapult.
Moving from mother to mother, when I became a mother, then you probably have noticed that people always give you good advice. So I call this next poem, Raising Him, Best Advice. If he's hungry, he will eat. If he's tired, he will sleep. If your milk dries up, drink this tea 3 times a day. If he has fever, make a poultice. Bathe him in cooling water, make him drink this. If he coughs all night, rub mustard, lard lemon on his scarred chest. If he cries, never ever pick him up. If he falls into a coma, sing to him. If he recovers from surgery behind schedule, never ever stay with him 24/7. If he learns to walk 3 days before his 2nd birthday, will a girlfriend care? Raise him as if nothing's wrong with him. If in PE that kid kicks him in the forehead, which swells up like a beehive, never ever sue the school. If he can't keep up with his brothers in math, English, science, just push him harder. Do not hold him back a year. Do not hurt his father's ego. If he doesn't learn to drive by 26, but moves back in with you, if he growls, no can do, no can do. If he quits, job after job after job. If he cuts 1 inch apart, if he skips therapy, you'll know what to do.
This one is about the kinds of similarities you see in generation after generation in the same family. This particular similarity is that my mother and I and my son all love rhubarb pie and would eat it at any time, even times when you're not supposed to eat it, like right before dinner. So this is our excuse for eating rhubarb pie right before dinner. Late afternoon pie. I made 2 quarts of rhubarb slop for sandwiches and toast. When one developed mold, I needed to use it up. Why not throw it in a pie shell? My mother, my son, and I huddle in the kitchen, spoons in hand, ready for the experiment. Sweet and acid tart basted stalk, juice-soaked crust. A half hour before dinner is too late for a snack, but not for a pie tasting, Ma declares. None of us mentions ruined appetites or the bruised egos of the night's dinner cooks. We dig in without ice cream, guilt spicing our pleasure.
My last poem was inspired by another motherly advice, which totally shocked me. I used to cook every day for my little family of sudden 3 sons. And yeah, after a few years, I could put it in perspective, and this was the result. 1-800-Wonder-Woman. She opens a can of tuna for them every Friday evening. Laser beams shoot from her eyes and sear a perfect, though slightly jagged circle in the top of the can. But this is not about tuna or Friday night, but the lacerating beam. Its effervescent sparkles, light more dazzling than the royal blue sequins on her bodice. Her body light, her eyes light, the tuna light. 1 can of tuna opened by laser beams feeds approximately 3 children at a time on a Friday evening. Why cook? Busy moms should take advantage of this service. She also hates cookies because she must watch her waistline. Last week, a whole row of sequins popped right off her bodice. She's affordable and fast, saving time on not having to sit down with a plate of cookies. She's now servicing roughly 15 million kids. That's approximately 5 million tuna cans. Light, in water. No need to call, just place can in the middle of dining table on a Friday evening. Wine tasting, gallery walk, opening night, Summerfest, bowling with the boss. Blind date from online dating site. Yet this is not about you or tuna or Friday night, but the glitz and the glow in her eyes and the beam. You should see the prancing particles, how they light up your kitchen, the dining room, your kids' faces. They are content. They are on tuna, bathing in blue sequin effervescence. You should check it out. The service, the dazzle.
Yes,
My last one is about my son going off to college, and I think this happens whenever somebody leaves, that what used to be little irritations become provoke nostalgia. Empty nest lament. Corey liked the gooey center of cornbread, or my banana, honey, whole wheat cylindrical machine bread. He also favored the top of the loaf as soon after baking as I was willing to cut it. Perversely, he buttered, then toasted. I too like the fresh top slice, domed, brown-skinned, the texture airier than when it cools. At times I almost resented his, "Dad, can you cut me the first piece?" Sometimes we split it. Now as the latest loaf cools on the wire rack, the top is all mine. The loaf lasts longer. The toaster no longer smokes. Over to Shannon and Ben.
The first poem I'm going to read is not in the packet. I apologize, but I'm an artist and I just made a last minute decision. So all the poems I'm going to read today are about the Red Riding Hood fairy tale. And what I do is I kind of enter the fairy tale and then change the fairy tale. So this first poem is called Red Riding Hood. It's in Red Riding Hood's voice. It's a new poem. Red Riding Hood to her mother. Under meek starlight, through darkness twisting, with your honeyed voice you led me, mother. Stunned, the moon's white eye misting, dimmed skeleton trees, the gushing river. With your honeyed voice you led me, mother, folded me warm in your fingers. The fire dimmed my skeleton, blood, the gushing river. I did not know, could love expire? Creased alive in your fist, ember of fire, I begged you to spare me, take me back home. I did not know then that love could expire. Could the heart ossify to bone? I begged you to spare me, take me back home. I was warned, mother, not to follow you. The heart ossifies, numb, blind bone. I was just a little starlight smudging through. I knew, mother, not to follow you. I saw your gritted smile when I found my way back. I was just a little starlight smudging through your sky. You thrust me a basket to pack. I saw your gritted smile when I found my way back. Stunned, the moon's white eye misting, I cried. But you thrust me a basket to pack. You sent me meek into darkness, twisting.
Okay, so this poem is about shopping for houses, and like anything, there's what you want and there's what you can afford. Rhapsody for real estate. Reel me house to house, our bank account ready for its root canal. Let's wander mid-century moderns, poor cousins of Frank Lloyd Wright, who flunked geometry because their flat tops failed to shed water. We can pitch a new roof, replace this wine-stained carpet with hardwood, maybe walnut, maybe oak. Either way, I'll whack those planks into place. You can cook, I can clean. Picture me on my knees, scrubbing toilets beyond innocent, sweeping closets. How pretty your dresses will look, chest to back, wife to wife. How sleek my suit's about to board first class to nowhere. Let's step outside through sliding doors. Oh, Emerald Square, oh, butter-haired willow where a tire swing drops like a hypnotist watch. We're ready to sway in hammocks, eavesdrop on katydids as Jefferson did while framing happiness. Let's hold hands and float like Wendy and Peter from backyard to half bath to master bath, unafraid of headache, allergy, gas. Our tiny tribes of medicine will colonize these cabinets. My bride, our future draws light and shadow through these blinds, the yin and yang of dusk, and then the need for bedside lamps, for we must read Tolstoy aloud before sleep, before conception, before track lights twist their little necks to brighten our wild-haired infant. I write this poem for him or her, for you, for we should have a home where time hammers us into place, all of us safe beside eternal spice rack and knife block, apart from cracked cement and crippled hula hoop, a home where we see ourselves reflected in polished granite countertops, midnight black, eyes within the rock, or, if not a home, at least this poem where we walk, barefoot across hardwood, whispering, walnut, walnut, walnut.
This next poem I'm going to read is in the voice of Red Riding Hood's grandmother, and that's one thing that I am really exploring, is giving the grandmother her own story. So this is in the packet, and it's grandmother, it's in her voice. Grandmother sees wolf in the garden. Through the window, a shadow, open-mouthed, darkens my poppies with its violet fur, its blood-slick fang. Oh, grave and disastrous animal marking my garden, how would it feel to have such a fine nose, wet, sensitive to the rush of scents, musty wings, fine fur musk, sweet spray of urine on willow? How would it feel to have such ears, triangles pricked to the slightest tick, rabbits passing in tall grasses, to have such eyes, pupils dilated to drink, rodents pouring from hole to hole? How would it feel to be driven by hunger, to never question your needs? How would it feel to know nothing of God and to eat, oh, to feast, in blue moonlight to strike such delicious innocence and fleece, to scrape tooth against bone, drink the white leak of marrow, all its salty stars?
So this poem requires a prop because it was inspired by something I saw carved in a tree, and what I saw was Chad 98, and it was carved in an aspen. And then I learned I'm pretty new still to Utah, so I learned all sorts of cool things, like the heaviest object living thing on the planet is in Utah. It's called Pando, which is a I'll pop in this mic, which is a quaking aspen, a huge quaking aspen off Utah Route 25, I think. Anyway, here's Pando, which is Latin for I spread. Drive 1 mile southwest of Fish Lake and you'll find Pando, a great aspen swath, Earth's heaviest life form. In fall, the round leaves turn gold. When struck by wind, they quake like coins or scales, trunks white as museum bones. You think you see many trees instead of a single thing sharing one giant root. Before I wrote this poem, I didn't know scientists deem aspens male or female. That Pando, male, goes by the trembling giant. I love the big guy's bark, more silver green than white up close, and soft enough to carve your name with a fingernail or rock. You can, people do, but it seems rude and vain to signify oneself like this. Chad 98. A name and year saved on one Pando stem. I learned his wood is poor kindling, but excellent for making copy paper, where Chad 98 my signature finance reports. The same pulp becomes news where Chad 98's obituary could be printed. Who knew aspen is popular timber for building saunas where, after a workout, Chad 98 can relax his muscles while sitting in silence beside a stranger covered by a soft white towel? Who thinks to carve one's name on the wall of a sauna, or a towel, or a stranger? I've never seen it.
Okay, this last poem is also about Red Riding Hood's grandmother, and this is imagining her after she's already been swallowed by the wolf. So what happens when you get swallowed by the wolf? Well, grandmother. Inside wolf, grandmother becomes a dancer. She is all glitter, sinew, his thudding heart her metronome. She whirls weightless, turning and turning in the gauze of beginning. She is a hummingbird inside a glass cage, feathers thrumming pink and green, smearing his insides with the bright sugar of survival until Wolf's mind is a wild white whirring. Dizzy, he sweats and retches. There is no stopping her twirling, thinking, this is love. Oh, there's no turning back the ecstatic clock.
Okay, this is my last poem. It's sort of a found poem. My son is 5, so he's learning how to read. And back in the day, you would read to your children, but now computers read to your children and teach your children how to read, which is, I don't know what it is, but here's a poem. It actually should be titled Machine Overheard Teaching Boy to Read, Not Talk. And this is the computer. My son likes to crank this program, pretty loud while he's doing it. And this is how it sounds. What is in the mitten? Click on the question mark. That's right. A question mark shows what is in the mitten. Click on skunk, down by the words, the mitten rewritten. Go on. Practice reading this page. Click on the rewind button. Repeat. What is in the mitten? Great! Now you can play it back. Click on what? This is not the word what. Click on what? That's right. Click on in. Click on in. Click on correct. Click on mitten. This is what sentences should look like. Click here. This is not the word mouse. A mouse is in the mitten. Which of these words goes in this blank? That's right. A mouse is in the mitten. The sentence should say, a mouse is in the mitten. Correct. A porcupine is in the mitten. That's right. A porcupine is in the mitten. You got it. A porcupine is in the mitten. That's right. The sentence should say, what is in the mitten? The sentence should say, click here. The sentence should say, click on the pencil when you are finished. Correct. You made a great story. Carrie and Phil are next.
This first one is called Scoliosis. Had God been at all square with us, the quadrants of her back would divide as logically as the four corners. Had her spine followed the easy cartography of the desert, she would have walked that line all the way from Dinosaur, Colorado to Rodeo, New Mexico. However, in this land where smallpox blankets were gifts and innocents were shackled to fields, her backbone cut into her like the blue Rio Grande. So, to save her, to standardize her, men weld heavy rebar to the bone, a brutal blessing. Or, this new hardware is a railroad track, a means to a fast, fresh era, the low western sun stinging her eyes.
Hello, I'm Phil. I have 3 short poems that are about our intimacy, or sometimes intimacy with nature.
Phil, step up closer to that mic. Give it a kiss.
First one is Garlic. Yesterday I ripped you from the ground, tied you up and hung you upside down in the garage to dry. This morning when I opened the door, you bowled me over with your thick accent, mugged me with your little pungent knuckles. You screamed your protest in the only language you knew, right to the root. Your feisty small fry riot made me chuckle the way we laugh at tiny guard dogs. But you must be tamed, so I put you in a box and shut the lid, put you in the garden shed and locked the door. Left you in solitary confinement to calm down. In time, you will learn to reserve your powers, redirect your energies for another season in my stew. But I know that in the end, at a delicate moment, when my guard is down, your ghost will have the last laugh, your revenge lingering on my breath.
Prayer for a root canal. Merciful butcher, I beg you, tug out this toxic worm, extract this red-hot thread. Some fanatic has slammed a pickaxe into my jaw. Bless me with benzocaine, lidocaine, and the Holy Spirit of nitrous oxide, under which every blood, bone, and brain cell will buzz. My heart is in my tooth. I promise to moan. I swear I will squirm. I vow to speak in tongues. Amen.
This is kind of an elegy for our planet, which they tell us is really straining under our misbehaving. But it's called To Die For. Wait for me, world, I'm coming to visit you. Wait, palm trees and low-hanging fruit. Wait, Glacier National and Yosemite. I'm in line up to Chicago, waiting for my turn at the gate. Songbirds, keep singing a little while until I get there. Wait for me, spring, I've put in my order for heirloom tomatoes, though they bruise easily as kisses in the wind. I'm here waiting for you, so please don't close the door. I have a lifetime pass that I haven't used. So please, ocean, keep rolling. Whales, keep leaping, and landscapes, keep your green and woven colored mantle of gems. Do not abdicate your throne before I get there to bow at your feet. Your knight and faithful servant to the death.
The starving. The starving started with the tiny silver key, which went down like a Necco wafer. Her papers were now safe from mother. A few months later, she worked an entire spool down her esophagus. It was a blue that had been discontinued. The bar of soap she bit off in chunks. The bitterness was awful and reminded her of penance. The hairbrush tickled her throat so much it hurt. It tasted of the lubricant mother used in her old Singer. She chewed the red chair father made for her childhood, a relief once it was out of sight. The old Schwinn took just one day. It took 3 days to rub the last black chain mark off her chin. Surprising how easy it was to get the old Monson building into her gut. It left dust on her tongue and staples on her teeth. It was even easier to swallow the vast sky. She felt she could breathe with it swelling in her. After consuming the dogs and the trees and the people, she sank her teeth into her own arm and kept starving.
Sometimes we're intimate with, we don't realize how intimate we are with certain things. We take them for granted. This one is called Cellular Level. Geranium eye, brush against your leaves, slightly fragrant, slightly wilted after a long weekend from your binge. Your red fists and your verdure voraciously attacking the light behind the glass. There you are, waiting for me to come out of my grave of thoughtlessness to water your parched roots. And now, and only now do I remember to water you. You are my servant, suddenly turned mysterious friend. I have come to depend on you as you on me. We drink each other thirstily. Let the biologist plumb the genetic root of this symbiosis. But in this cubicle of time, we have between us understanding down to the level of ourselves.
That was poetry at 3, and you can clap for whoever you think won, but I think they should all take a bow. Poetry at 3 has been together for a long time. People come, people go, people come back. Carrie left us, and now she's back for a visit, and of course we had to snag her quickly. And Ben is our newest member. He's been so great. We've had a lot of fun. Susan moved away, and we cried and cried like we did for Carrie, and now she came back. She popped in, and now she's leaving again. Brock's here. He's been one of our rocks of poetry since 2000 what? 3? 1? A long time. 2? Shannon and I took a graduate poetry writing class from Ken Brewer, the former late poet laureate of Utah. And Shannon and I have been in this group since then. And you can read on the top of your script. If you didn't get a script, Kendall and I don't know, whoever else didn't, you can come up and get one. They're on the, oh, there's some right there. So you can read about us if you'd like. I'll read one last poem, and this is dedicated to poetry at 3. and it's called Only Pears. And this poem is also dedicated to friendship and memories and poetry and childhood and you. Thank you for coming. I think this has been the biggest crowd I've seen in all the stages at Summerfest with the magnificent musical programs. And so I know that Logan loves poetry. This is the city of poetry. Thanks. Only Pears. In a past life, I gathered fruit as it fell from branches that grew up the slender trunk. An inverted umbrella weighted with plumped, ripened gold. Cows grazed in the pasture by the orchard, pears shining on their own side of the fence. Now the pears drop every season, long before they should, worm-holed and limb-scarred from bare spines. But let's not talk about the fall, the trampled fruit, and early death. Instead, picture pears, bell-shaped and burnished, lifted in a child's hand from orchard bed to lips, deep gold, incredibly sweet. And you are incredibly sweet. Thank you for coming.